I chose Considerations for Teaching Sex Education During Emergency Distance Learning by Kimberly Borowski because I believe that students need to understand healthy boundaries, healthy relationships, and consent so that when they make decisions in the future, they are better informed and can make these decisions for themselves. She highlights several takeaways, and these are best practices before teaching sex education in distance learning, safety considerations for both students and teachers, teacher best practices, one skill building activity and assessment to do in distance learning, and lastly, online sexual health resources and book recommendations. So, best practices before teaching sex ed, the number one thing to remember is to inform the parents or guardians about the change in delivery of comprehensive sexuality education, and the curriculum should be allowed for viewing for transparency. And you have to establish ground rules and boundaries, like recording may not be allowed. And we have to be mindful that not all students may have their own space, devices, and or safe space to ask questions. So wearing headphones should be mandatory, and a private space to view these lessons is also important. And if these are not available for our students, then we have to provide alternative means of connecting with them. It could be a drop-in lesson in the office, as long as you are following guidelines, covering your face, and also conducting a Zoom lesson with just 2 or 3 of you. And also, we are a mandated reporter, and if we suspect any abuse, we have to report it. Teacher best practices, we have to tell students the content that we are going to cover and how much time we're going to need from them to cover the content. And we have to establish safety, again, boundaries and guidelines, use inclusive language. We have to create trusty and safe and transparent environment for them. We have to provide content warning ahead of time and alternative assignment, and provide resources for students ahead of time. And by the way, these are again under the trauma-informed lens, under best practice for teachers. Address cultural, historical, and gender issues, focus on building health skills in distance learning, and one skill building activity and assessment. For us teachers, we can ask, what skill and functional knowledge would I like my students to walk away with this semester? Kimberly says that 3 things: healthy relationships, boundaries, and consent. And one skill, she provides 3, but to her the most important is communication. And the next is information, lastly, decision making. So these 3 things are combined in sex education so that they are better informed when they have to make these decisions that impact their own bodies in the future, that also have to do with relationships. She highlights several sexual health resources online. These are the statewide and national sexual health resources, Teen Health, Teen Source, Scarlet Teen, Advocates for Youth, Sex, etc., and 6 Minutes Sex Education. There are several book recommendations. There are one of them is Sexploitation by Cindy Pierce. And for the assessment, she gave one example that I think is particularly important, and she directed her students to go to a website where they can answer questions based on two answers, either fact or fake, and they can choose. And if they answer incorrectly, the website will tell them why and will give them the information necessary. I chose this because I have always been interested in how teachers address or teach sex education in the classroom, and I believe that, one day I might encounter that too, and I want to be prepared.